So, who is Donald Trump going to select as our next Fed chair? And what will this say about the economy? That's the subject of today's video, and these are the headlines. Trump's team expands search for Fed chair, adding new names to the list. Before, the two top fronters were either Kevin Hassett or Scott Bessent. And if you remember who these guys are, Kevin Hassett is the liar who grins, and Scott Bessent is the liar who coughs. Take your pick who your favorite liar is. And effectively, Trump, when he does these things, he's casting a TV show, right? Trump is interested in ratings. He wants someone who's got nice hair, a good smile, and that will kiss up to him and also put money in Trump's pocket. So that's Trump's criteria for picking said things. And also, he tends to pick people who are kind of personal friends, family friends, go to his golf course. So great. What's interesting about this that they're expanding the list of people who, could potentially be the next Fed chair. I think the list is up to 10 names now. So before it was like 2 favorites, close friends, now 10 lists. And it makes me start to think, does anyone even want this job? Because if you think about it, why would anyone take a job when the economy is tanking? Trump is tanking it on purpose, is what it seems like. And Trump will most likely blame everything on you. Is that sound like a job that you want? And so this is sort of why I think they're trying to expand the list. And maybe when people come into the job, they'll meet with Trump and say, hey, if I'm going to do it, this is what my plan is, and will you blame me or not? The problem is that Trump is a liar, and no matter what he promises, said, incoming Fed chair, Trump's going to, back out of whatever promises. You know how Trump operates. And then you've got inflation, right? This is out of Barron's. Inflation is rising, growth is slowing, stocks are bubbly. What could go wrong? And just ask yourself, is this the environment that you want to go into, right? As an incoming Fed chair, you know that Trump's going to blame you no matter what you do, as Trump seemingly is tanking the economy, etc., with all his tariffs and his erratic personality. The Twitter tweeter toddler can change his mind from day to day. Is this the environment that you want to be in? I just don't think many people want to do it. Now, regarding inflation, I think inflation is clearly going to tick up. The Fed's been saying that the whole time. And Trump probably wants to pick someone who's going to toe the line and just repeat whatever nonsense stuff that Trump says. And Trump wants the Fed chair to come out every day and say, hey guys, the economy's great, jobs are booming, you're all rich, and you should praise, your dear leader Trump. And when it comes to any of this kind of stuff, guys, I just tell you what's being said around the market and what various companies are saying, etc. I do show you what the numbers are, but ultimately, you will know your own situation, right? Don't let me tell you how your situation is. Don't let Trump tell you how your situation is. You know your own situation. You know your job situation. You know what stuff costs at the store. You know the people around you, etc. And one of the things I always encourage you guys is just share, because every market is going to be different. I always say, hey, what's going on in your market? What's going on in your market? And, I piece stuff together from what people are saying in our community, and I can tell that it's tough out there. And plus, I know for myself it's tough out there. I go to the store the same way you do. And guys, things are expensive. I really know. And this is one of the sort of challenges as you get older. If you don't know, I'm 50. I remember when things cost a lot less. I totally remember. And so like every time I go to the store, I'm like getting sticker shock every single time. And also, as I always tell my wife when we go shopping at this, just use the grocery store, for example, buy things on sale. If it's not on sale, we're not buying it. That's literally the conversation we have every single day, because prices do matter. Does CPI reflect true inflation? Some on Wall Street have doubts. And I'm always laughing when I read this stuff, because it's like, this is literally the stuff that we're talking about every day, is like, what's going on with inflation? And, can we trust any numbers coming from the Trump people? They also got this: more Americans are behind on their bills. Here's a big reason why, right? And I think you'll know when things get really bad, you'll see a lot of defaults, be it a mortgage, auto, credit card, or even student loans, this kind of stuff. And then you have this: what's driving the markets? So this is another headline, and I'm just going through everything with you guys today. AI spending is propping up the economy, right? It's complicated. So, okay. Again, if you're coming in as Fed chair, inflation looks bad. Unemployment is starting to go up. You got a crazy Trumpy boss. And then our markets are being essentially propped up by AI, which is a bubble in of itself. And for those of you who understand the stuff, AI isn't even what it's all cracked up to be. It's a language model. It's not necessarily thinking in the way that, you think about it in the movies. It's not like that. And so one of the things that was really fascinating is they were talking about, and it depends who you ask, because it's hard to get a real, exact read because the market's a big place. But one person was saying here that some statistics, this is from Barron's, some statistics suggest second quarter AI spending powered nearly half of GDP growth, right? Others say the money being spent will ultimately find its way overseas. Great. So, if this is true, and it's hard to know exactly, this kind of calculation, but I mean, just think about this. And that's the stuff that Trump and the Muskies always, try to push, is that what's going to save USA is crypto, because they want to make USA the crypto capital of the world. And if you don't know what crypto is, just consider yourself lucky. The best way to describe it is Trump has bankrupted several casinos in the past, and he wants to introduce this new casino coin, crypto, to the USA. What do you think is going to happen? So that's essentially what we're talking about. Either you can call it Mickey Mouse dollars. If you remember Toys R Us, you call it Jeffrey bucks, any number of these things. But that's part of what they're pushing. And, in order to power this crypto world, you need a bunch of chips and data centers and such like that. With AI things, same thing, chips, data centers, whatever. But ultimately, your whole financial, sort of future becomes this, again, casino. Plus, if you want to talk about, growth with AI or whatever, the end game then would be to replace human workers. So I don't see either of these two things that the Trump people are pushing as being a positive thing. If I'm wrong, if you disagree, if you think replacing workers is fantastic, and if you like, casino chips, you guys can let me know on that. So there's that. Let me read a couple of descriptions about our current situation. It says, quote, "You could say, okay, AI is propping up the economy and is adding more than this component of the economy that is so large and so dominant." Okay, so this is over at Ritz-Holtz, I guess. Or you could say, consumer spending is really setting a low bar. It's stalled out. I think it's the latter, right? So we're trying to figure out what is driving the economy. So to explain this, it's like this person saying, okay, is it just AI spending is really, really a lot? Or is it that consumer spending is down so much that all we have is AI spending? That's how you have to look at that, what they say there. Here's another thing. It says, AI CapEx is going gangbusters, but can it prop up the economy? I'm not so sure, meaning people are indeed investing in these chips and such, building data centers. I don't think you have a thriving U.S. economy without the consumer. And I completely agree. And this is a big problem that people point out all the time, is that if you're going into this AI-driven world, who's going to buy the products that you're supposedly making, right? USA is I think it's 70% consumer, they always say 2/3. So, 60, 70% is a consumer-based economy. That's what the USA is. And so if you're replacing workers, who are the consumers going to be? And that's always a fundamental question with that. Here's another point of view on the same article here. Although it is possible that some of this spending will be reshored back to the US, it will take a while for that to happen. And I question if this would ever happen. I mean, are we really going to bring all these factories back to the USA when companies who are driven by, essentially maintaining their margins, pleasing shareholders, pleasing the board, when they can find cheaper production overseas, how are they possibly going to get costs down to be equal to what would be overseas in the USA? Unless theoretically, right, in the Trumpian Muskie point of view, they completely demolish the job market, and then you're forced to take low-paying, minimum wage jobs or even less. You never know with the Trump people. I'm just saying you never know. And you may not know this. Minimum wage is variable, meaning that it is a different rate in each state in the USA. So some states are really, really low. And I was thinking about this. If you know, and this is always a weird one for me. If you're a server, like a waiter, waitress, right, a server at a restaurant, sometimes you can put minimum wage really low, like the $2 level kind of thing, because supposedly you're making all this money on tips. And I've never understood those laws. If you guys can explain that one to me, I always find that one strange. But that's the kind of world that Trump wants to go into, and then you can just see it happening. What else is going on in the economy? And again, I want to set the table sort of, if you're the incoming Fed chair, do you want to deal with all this stuff? So these are also headlines today. Airbnb stock drops while Wall Street is cautious about the Experiences relaunch. Great. Airbnb is a whole other issue. You can use it to gauge, is tourism up or down? Is money flowing around? Also, is there going to be finally pushback on this whole sort of sharing slash gig economy? I mean, I think a lot of this stuff can't last forever. It is like a temporary band-aid with sort of exposes the faults in our current economic system. Or this, Rivian and Lucid shares drop after earnings. Tesla's not the only one having trouble selling EVs. I can just tell you guys, I look at the price of cars, I'm sure you guys do as well. EVs cost more money than a conventional vehicle. And they would even cost more money if there weren't government support. So for example, here in Korea, if you want to buy an electric vehicle, the government's now offering like crazy incentives, upwards of anywhere, say $5,000 to $8,000, kind of in that range. I think the USA is something in that range as well. If you remove that government support for buying electric vehicle and suddenly the electric vehicles, all jump up in price by what, 5,000 to 8,000, it's pretty significant, Or you have something like this, Crocs stock slides 25%. Is America's ugly shoe craze ending? And there's a couple ways you can read this one is, one, the consumer is softening, meaning that they're not necessarily going to buy so much stuff. And then two, the tariffs are real. Crocs, right, and almost all shoe companies make their shoes abroad, Southeast Asia or wherever. And Trump put really high tariffs on said places, so that means your products are going to end up costing more. That's just what it is. And so that's going to definitely hurt particular companies. And then you've got this, Wendy's cuts outlook as U.S. sales falters. And when you read through the stuff, again, you always have to keep an open mind on these things and figure out what is really going on. Is it that Wendy's is struggling in a market that's still doing okay, meaning that, well, Burger King is still making sales, McDonald's is still making sales, it's just maybe Wendy's odd person out, or maybe the burger market is shrinking where people are buying more, other things like Chipotle. And I'll just tell you guys, I mentioned Chipotle. When I'm in USA, I prefer Chipotle over burger, but that's just me. Everyone's going to be different on that stuff. So, or you could read this as that, is the overall consumer market faltering and they don't necessarily want to go shop or eat out as much anymore. So that's where you got to read this stuff. And then you've got this, IRS, White House clashed over immigrants' data before tax chief was ousted. Ouch. And the basic gist of it is that Trump pushed out the IRS head, sent that person off to Iceland. True story. I guess they're going to be an ambassador now. And brings in a new person, okay? And this is the sixth person in 6 months. So I guess they change IRS like every month, which is pretty crazy, the IRS head. Recently they're fighting over taxpayer data. Department of Homeland Security, so that's Kristi Noem. They want, all this private data from the IRS, then they can try to deport people, track people down, etc. And the IRS is probably thinking, I just don't want to be involved with this stuff. That's your guys' game. We're just doing taxes over here. And it gets really messy in a hurry. And if you're the incoming, Fed person, and Trump's like, hey, I'm going to totally pick you. And this is the environment, right? You got a tough economy, you got inflation, you got Trump's policies, you got bad jobs numbers, and the list goes on. Is that the job that you would want to take? I've already laid out there, in my opinion, I don't think you can find anyone good. And then you got to be on the Trump TV show day after day after day and saying what Trump wants to hear. So there's that. And so you're going to lose all integrity by taking said job. It's going to be tough to find a good person. So that's my thoughts on this. I want to hear yours, and I'll catch you on the next video.